Okay, so thank you very much for being with us during this health talk on mental health and intestinal function. With us today, we have Roberta Farrugia de Bono, a clinical psychologist and family therapist, and also Dr. Adele Muscat, sports psychologist and lecturer at the Institute of Physical Education and Sports. So thank you for coming. Um, Today, this month in May is a mental health awareness month, and I would like to ask you to provide us a bit more information about mental health, the symptoms around it, and what we can do and what is the potential causes.
Okay. Mela, if we had to look at stress, I think I can say that over the past years, especially after COVID, a lot of people have been accessing mental health services because of stress-related symptoms that vary quite a bit. So in our practice, we've been meeting with people of all ages coming from all walks of life, who are finding it more and more difficult to manage their stress levels. And so, yes, if we had to think about a priority for mental health, definitely taking care of our stress levels and taking care of our bodies to manage our stress levels should be a top priority, you know?
Brilliant. And
From my side, my contact is mostly with young people and athletes in general. And despite the thought that athletes are physically healthy and the exercise that they do on a regular basis helps their mental health, they still do come up with a lot of stress symptoms. Definitely it's because of the need to perform, and also the rushed lifestyle they are leading. But we're seeing more and more young people, more and more children with stress symptoms. So as Roberta said, especially from the pandemic to now, it seems that the general population is struggling more and more with such issues. Of course, to me, it's also the built-up environment, the lack of nature that we are facing as well. And these stress symptoms come about in different forms.
of course, it would be also nice to do a Zoom call in the garden. Yeah, we are all in the office. Okay, no, that's important that we recognize the potential causes of these stress. Of course, pandemic played a major role also within sports and athletes, because of course they reduced their performance because they couldn't most probably do their routine exercise as well. So that even increased the
Yes.
the issue of stress related to, and anxiety, I would say, related to performance in that case as well.
Yes.
But also to public at large. Um, so um, so what are actually the causes? What happens in terms of like physiology, in terms of physiology, what triggers stress?
Let's say that I think it's very important to note that we all need a little bit of stress in our lives. So I don't think that we can, go without any stress, because stress is part of our lives. In fact, there is good stress and bad stress. So, for example, if you had to, I don't know, see an athlete, for example, just right before a race or whatever, obviously the stress levels are going to be quite high. Even a student studying for an exam and facing the exam, right now it's May, so it's also exam time. The anxiety will be there, the stress levels will be there. Now, what happens is that stress is very much, in my experience, an individualized experience. So an event like an exam, a race, whatever, could have different meanings for different people, and therefore they would suffer different levels of stress when faced with the situation. And most often, the stress comes when there is a mismatch between their belief in their ability to take the task and how much that task is big for them. Okay, so when there's that mismatch, when I think that I don't have the coping skills to manage the task ahead of me, then my stress levels will increase. Okay, and that's when it becomes then bad stress, because especially if it is continued stress, then it will definitely have an impact on our mental health and on our well-being. So yes, sometimes you face a very difficult situation, but then it passes and you go back to your normal functioning. But some people, because they feel very much overwhelmed, would be passing through situations that are ongoingly difficult, okay, because their belief about their coping skills are very low, and therefore they'll be constantly facing stress, and that then would definitely have an impact on our brain, on our serotonin levels, and other chemicals in the brain, which would make then the body kind of feel the symptoms of stress. I think that is my explanation of why people, kind of feel stressed. And then obviously there are the symptoms. I don't know whether you want to go into them now, but obviously when a person is stressed, then there are different things that happen, again, differently for different people. Some people would have, for example, headaches. Some people would have sweats and a general feeling of unwellness. Some people would have problems with their intestines and their stomachs, as we know there is that link. So different people are affected differently with different situations and different types of stress.
Yeah, of course. You mentioned, for instance, serotonin, as you described, an important neurotransmitter, which is mainly produced in the intestines, and therefore we will discuss that later in the health talk. But also other hormones, I think, that are extremely important. For instance, the main relationship between stress and gut dysfunction is actual cortisol, because it promotes both.
It increases when you are stressed, exactly.
Exactly. So, for instance, in case of cortisol, it's important to increase to wake up. Yeah, so it's extremely important to spike in the morning, but it's also very important to lower down in terms of quantities during the day. Okay, so these are important physiological aspects which connect stress levels with also intestinal function, of course.
And we can do a lot for ourselves on a daily basis, I feel, to regulate these levels. A few things that I discuss regularly with my students in particular, but also with athletes, are, first of all, yes, the need of trying to find some time in nature. Research is finding that the blues, the greens, are very important for us. And again, some people will tell you what nature, but you can simply find a garden close to you, or you can, on your way home from work, maybe drive somewhere close to the sea and spend just 10 minutes looking at the sea. So that is, I feel, a very, very important factor. And the importance of the sun in the winter months, because we do struggle mentally if we're not getting enough daylight and sun hours, what we call seasonal affective disorder as well in some cases. Animals, so yes, spending time talking to animals.
Animals, having a pet.
Yes. I go and look for the cats at St. Anton Gardens, for example. That's a very good mindfulness technique that I find, just spending those few minutes with the cats, chatting away to them. Hugs are also very important. If we get a few hugs here and there, that's going to help us regulate our hormones. Of course, exercise is very, very important.
Yes.
Doing exercise regularly will reduce anxiety levels. And as well, nutrition. We do know, we have seen the link over and over that access to the right nutrition is going to help our mental health in general as well. I don't know if you have something else, Roberta, to add to my list.
Being Roberta, I'm going to add sleep to the list. I think good enough hours of sleep per night. It always depends on the person, but having a good night's sleep is very important for our stress levels as well. And in terms of green, I could also mention, like, even having plants can make a difference. If your home is kind of, and sometimes you don't need to have a lot of green fingers, but having plants that can live in extreme conditions, like if you forget to water them or stuff like that, will actually add a bit of good feel to your day by just having, you know, a plant to look at, and more than one, perhaps even better. So if, you know, having green spaces are difficult, you can always add the green to your home. You know, that also makes a difference. I think also having a friend to talk to. Adele mentioned hugs, but having one person at least in your life with whom you can share sometimes your worries and your difficulties is also extremely important. People who do not have at least one good friend do suffer, you know, when it comes to, do suffer more when it comes to stress levels. So even having just one person in your life that, you know, you can talk to is very important too.
And on this note, there are a lot of groups these days on social media, and you can combine several of the things that we've mentioned together: nature walks, making new friends, the
Yes.
sun. So do look up for social media groups that are promoting nature treks, even travel sometimes. Then again, Roberta knows that my solution to all stresses is travel.
Cool. Same as mine. And now that we can fly again after COVID, makes it a bit better. But not everyone can, you know, afford that. So,
yes,
you know, trying to find, like Adele said, these groups where you can interact with people, but at the same time do some physical exercise, you know, be in nature, etc., really fulfills all those requirements for being better able to manage your stress levels, you know.
Okay, so excellent. I mean, it's really a very short intervention, but the value of such intervention to actually provide the strategies to reduce stress. For instance, I can go and buy a plant now and a pet, you know, so so these are really valuable, you know, it's really valuable. And of course, I cannot but not mention, because you mentioned nutrition. Nutrition is important as a fuel,
Yes.
but the engine is also extremely important, which is actually the intestinal function. And this is what this health talk will provide information on, because the intestines is actually producing all these neurotransmitters and hormones that are extremely important in regulating stress as well. So I always add to the nutrition, which is extremely important, the gut health, which is the intestinal function, and together that will provide us reduced stress as well. So thank you very much for this intervention. I think it was extremely valuable, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
thank you.